videos at 9:30. Uh, I'd like to say that I like slept in or something, but I've been up since 4:30. But I sometimes feel like it's those times when uh, I get up real early that I'm just for some reason running behind for everything the rest of the day. Uh, yeah, does anyone sleep well anymore? Um, yeah. Anyhow, it's good to be together, or whatever this is, of together for these Elul moments, for this month of introspection. Elul is traditionally a month where we're supposed to do a cheshbon hanefesh, where we're supposed to look at the gap, cheshbon hanefesh, literally an accounting of the soul, where we're supposed to look at the gap between the people we have been and the people we could have been. And the hope is that in doing so, somehow we become the people we should be in this next year moving forward. Anyways, I wanted to share one of my favorite texts today. This is really one of my very favorite texts about this sort of time. So let's see if this pops up. There we go. Okay, so we're going to look at two different pieces of this. The first is from the Mishnah, from this sort of compilation of rabbinic thought and rabbinic texts that happens around 200 CE. Really the core of what we now call the Talmud, of what we call sort of the oral Torah, really the foundation of Judaism. We start, by the way, 5:30 Tuesdays. Come join us at Talmud. Anyways, this is the foundation of it. So from the Mishnah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgoda testified in the case of a beam that has been stolen, and the thief went and built it into a palace. Okay, so we have this setup, right? First of all, we've got one of the great rabbis testifying that this is the case, or within this case, about a beam, and evidently we're talking about sort of the main beam that would construct a building that was stolen, acquired improperly, and the thief then took this and built it into a palace. So the questions become, what happens now? What does justice demand? What is the next piece? And it seems like, right, that there are two immediate, obvious options. The first is we can demand that this palace come down and the beam go back to its rightful owner, right? That is one form of justice. The other option, the other form of justice that I think immediately comes to mind and that we're going to see is offered in just a moment, is the idea that there should be some sort of compensation, whether or not that's direct value for value compensation, or whether there's some sort of punitive pieces that go in, whatever that looks like, that there should be financial considerations, but that fundamentally justice does not demand that this palace be torn down. Let's hold on to that idea of a palace here, by the way, because it's clear that we're not just talking about a regular house, right? And so we have all of the other pieces of class and power that goes into this, and the reality that, right, in our world, unfortunately, as we know, palaces are not often torn down. Okay, let's look and see what the next 600 years of rabbinic thought does to this in the Gemara. This is from the Gemara that's written in the Bavli, sort of this expansion of the Mishnah, the Talmud. So the rabbis taught, if a person wrongfully takes a beam and builds it into a palace. Now we have two great schools during the early rabbinic period. We have the school of Shammai and we have the school of Hillel. You can think of them in some ways as maybe the movements, the like the Reform and the Orthodox of their moment. Hillel, Beit Hillel, the house of Hillel, the school of Hillel, being traditionally the sort of more human-centered approach, and Shammai being the more law-centered approach. Sometimes it's described as liberal and conservative. I don't know if that exactly fits. Anyways, Beit Shammai says that the whole palace must be demolished and the beam must be restored to its original owner, right? This is one model of justice, and it fits right in with how we understand Shammai, that like justice is justice, right? And this is one way of understanding the world. It was my beam. I want my beam back. Beit Hillel, as we might expect, does something different. Beit Hillel, however, says that the latter can claim only the money, the monetary value of the beam. Okay, so I'll read the last sentence in a moment, but right, that makes sense. Hillel is on the other side saying, no, we're not going to tear down the palace, we're going to claim the money, or give the money or some multiple of it or whatever it is. But it's the logic at the end that always sticks with me for this time of year. So as not to place obstacles in the way of penitence, or in the way of those who are trying to do tshuva, the way of those who are trying to become the better version of themselves. Right? What always strikes me about this story, right, if we go back to the original version of it right here, is that there are these two options that we immediately go to about how to solve this, right? Do we give the bean back, or do we have some sort of monetary compensation? And in both of those, the focus is on justice. And Hillel is giving a twist at the end here, right? What Hillel is saying is that if we only think about justice and we don't think about how we can make justice lead to a better world, how we can improve people, how we can do tshuva, how we can do the acts of repair within ourselves that make the world the way it should be, then we're doing it wrong. Then justice is only for that moment, and it's only passing rather than be this sort of structural justices that change folks, that change society, that change systems, right? So anyways, a moment of reflection on that, one of my very favorite texts, and the idea of how often I know I'm there, right? Interpersonally, or at CRC, or in my family, or in my friendships, or whatever it is, where I look at this situation and the focus becomes about right and wrong entirely, and not about how we can bring repair. Um, so I always like this text to think about that there are moments when we can look at the exact same issue, right? This beam, and change how we think about it, so that the result is a more just and more equitable and more fair world. So before we blow the shofar, I thought there's this tradition of saying this psalm, and in particular this one line from the psalm, Achat Sha'alti, during this month of Elul, and I don't think I've sung it at all this month. So we'll see if I remember how to play it and how to sing it. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai otav akesh. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai otav akesh. Shivti bevet Adonai kol yamei chayai. לחזות בנועם, בנועם אדוני, ובקר בהיכלו. לחזות בנועם, בנועם אדוני, ובקר בהיכלו. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אותה אבקש. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אותה אבקש. And before we go, we will blow the shofar. Karen, are you still over there? Oh, maybe not. So we have three calls of the shofar. We begin with Tekiah, this blast that is there to wake us up, to call us to attention, to call us to become the version of ourselves we always should have been. Try that again. Tekiah. So the next one is Shvarim, has three blasts. The idea is that somehow hearing this, it should call us to examine our past so we can make changes in our present so the future can be different. So Shvarim. And then, I don't know if you can hear my dog Rowie is right over there, sort of whining along, mini howling along. And then there's Tshuvah, this 9 blast that is supposed to shatter us, right? It's supposed to find those places in our souls that have become calcified, that we can't see how we are not the people we should be, right? It's easy to change the things that we see. It's hard to change the places that we make excuses, that we don't see, that we don't look, right? The pieces in the attic we don't want to look at. And so Tshuvah, these 9 blasts is supposed to sort of shake it all apart and break it up. So Tshuvah. finally, we have Tekiah Gedolah, the long blast, the cry of a heart that has been broken open to the work that has to be done. Have a good morning, everyone. Take care.